Thank you, Lieutenant and Chief Bryant. And what I shared as we were preparing to come out in my conversation with Kennedy's grandmother, the one thing that she asked for was that we bring the people responsible for this beautiful child's death to justice. So I am personally grateful, and on behalf of the City of Atlanta, grateful to the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department for allowing us to give at least that bit of comfort to Kennedy's family. I am going to give you an overview of what our crime reduction plan is and will be. This is a work in progress. I just a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, held a press briefing specifically addressing crime in Atlanta. So some of this may be information that you all have heard before or received through our press releases as we've issued several administrative and executive orders. Again, this is not the entirety of the plan. This will be a work in progress, but for purposes of public information, I will go through a few highlights of that plan today. And again, thank you to Chief Bryan and to our COO, John Keene, our Chief of Staff, Carmen Chubb, and others for giving so much attention and effort to making this plan possible. A couple of highlights here. Nuisance properties in the city as we are preparing for New Year's Eve. Someone described the Hyatt Hotel to me as looking like Freaknik. For those of you who've been around Atlanta for any amount of time, you remember Freaknik. There are people traveling to Atlanta. Someone told me about an advertisement in Philadelphia for New Year's Eve parties in Atlanta. Again, a reminder, and this is not pointing blame at anyone. This is a statement of the facts. We are open. Our state is open. There are people traveling here from out of town and all that entails to party in our city. We will continue to focus on businesses that are violating our city codes, including nightclubs that are staying open beyond the hours in which they are entitled to stay open, including those who are violating the capacity limits of those businesses. This will be in conjunction with the Atlanta Police Department and also with the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. The governor's order for capacity limits as it relates to COVID-19 requires us to provide notice and 2 citations to these owners. So to all of our nightclub and bar owners, you are being put on notice today. To the extent that you've not received notice, I'm formally issuing notice, and then it will be followed by, again, violation citation. Impose fines and close businesses down. But we will be citing business owners for violations of capacity limits and also exceeding operating hours. We also will focus additional resources on our enforcement of our targeting our gangs and gun violence. For whatever reason, there is a narrative that we have withdrawn from a gang task force in the city of Atlanta. That is absolutely not true. What we did do, because our officers, APD officers, wear body-worn cameras. When they were assigned to some of our federal task force, they were not allowed to wear their cameras. We took those officers off of those task force. As a result of that, the federal government has now changed its policy, allowing all of the, not all of the officers, but many of the officers to wear cameras when they are assigned to these federal task force. So this very bold step that we took in Atlanta has now changed the federal policy regarding body-worn cameras. So that is for the safety of the officers and also for to help provide information on people when people come in contact with these officers. We will also continue our federal partnership with the FBI through Operation Phoenix, which is a partnership to identify, investigate, and prosecute those deemed most dangerous in our city. Since that was announced, 12 violent offenders have already been apprehended. There will be targeted enforcement and investigation through the Violent Crime Reduction Team that's known as the APEX and Gun Assault Team. They will continue to target violent offenders and investigate shooting incidents. To date, those teams have apprehended over 1,500 violent offenders and removed 356 guns from our street. Many have asked about us doing a gun buyback program. As I've discussed it with our law department, there are some challenges with that program, but we will continue to explore all of our options. The establishment of the top 10 most wanted, this will continue to raise awareness of offenders in our city. Since its creation about a month ago, already 3 people have been apprehended from that most wanted list. Sheriff Labatt, formerly Chief Labatt, from our Corrections Department, was sworn in as Fulton County Sheriff today. Through partnership with Fulton County, and thank you to Interim Chief Bryant and the work with Sheriff Labatt, we will be working together, and Fulton County will put more sheriff's deputies on the streets at peak times to help us focus on crime suppression. Also, the expansion of the Operation Shield camera network. This is in conjunction with the Atlanta Police Department, which might I mention within the last month, we did a ribbon cutting for new At Promise Youth Center and over at the Young Family YMCA, one of our challenged areas. So hopefully by the end of the year, there will be 3 At Promise Youth Centers in the city. The one in Vine City, English Avenue, has had a tremendous impact in creating relationships with our officers, with our communities, and we've seen a reduction of crime in that area. Also, neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, creating neighborhood safety planning, that we will work in partnership with our MPUs, with our community associations, and other entities to create safety plans that are specific to the challenges of a particular community. We've talked a lot about street racing. We've already seen a reduction in street racing based on the efforts that have been made. We will continue to work on that. Also, as we talk about morale with our police department, morale at the Atlanta Police Department, we know, has suffered. We know that it is suffering across the country because being a police officer is a difficult job on a good day. And you add the challenges that we've seen over the past several months, and it makes it that much more challenging. We are working with the Atlanta Police Foundation along with other entities across the city to develop a new public safety training academy. If you've seen the one that the officers work out of now, it is in very poor condition. Also, we are working on a plan that will address recruiting and retention of our officers. There's been a lot of discussion on whether or not officers are leaving APD. This was a problem before we instituted the 30% pay increase for APD. It continues to be a challenge. We've had some officers leave, some return. Again, this is not just an issue in Atlanta. We're seeing it across the country, but we will continue to place focus on that. And also, we are continuing to work on our One Atlanta, One APD plan in conjunction with the national organization PERF. That's working with us to address many of our issues related to police, improving our policies as it relates to policing in our communities. And before I open up for questions, John, did I miss anything? All right, those are just highlights. So again, you will, in the coming days, receive additional information, but I want to share that with you because I know it's been a point of discussion. And with that, I'll open up for any questions that you all may have. Are there any questions? All right. Anything else?
Any other questions for me?
For you, yes.